which put me out of tune sometimes, but not with this guitar. So check it out, yeah, it's this trick. It's, can I get some juice? Yeah, so it's... So you're not actually not bending the string, but you are bending the string by just touching below the note. No, it's a fun trick. It's kind of stupid.
Awesome.
It's not stupid at all. When I first heard this band, I put it up on the little studio monitors in my office, and I turned to Rich Hannon and I went, oh my God, somebody knows what they're doing. It's so hard to do something new. This is very, very well-trodden territory. Everybody's been, and that's completely new. You should give him a hand for that. That's I don't think you're going to dance Motown to it.
You could. There's probably, there could be an internet meme out there of someone doing that. I don't know.
Yeah. That would be new territory. All right, so Mark, let me explain what I'm going to do, and then we'll let him play again, okay? I'm going to try to present a theory, and in the hopes of presenting this theory and trying to prove it, the hope is that they'll look more to our instruments when they go to buy something. You've got Fender and Gibson and, Sterling and us and Ibanez and all these different brands, and there's really 350 brands now. And it's really hard for them to figure out what to know. It used to be 5 or 6 brands and 5 or 6 factories. Now there's 300 brands and maybe 12 factories, And so we don't make any other brands in our factory except PRS, as you know. And so I want to present this theory, and then I want to try and prove it. Right? So here's the theory. The theory is it's almost like food. If you have really fresh chicken and you make a Italian chicken dish, it's going to taste different than if it's been frozen or old or whatever. I mean, the ingredients have a lot to do with it, all right? And in the end, if I put a rubber bridge on his guitar and a rubber nut and rubber tuning pegs, is the guitar going to sound better or worse? Okay, you'll all admit that will subtract from the sound. And what I'm suggesting is that if you get all the things on the guitar, the tuning pegs, the nut, the bridge, the body, all the stuff, to not fight the sustain of the guitar, it'll last for a long time. Turns out, the sign of a good guitar you can do with a stopwatch. If the guitar lasts for about 15 seconds when you hit the A string and the other one lasts for 35 seconds, the 35-second guitar is a better guitar. It's less subtractive. So let me show you for a second a piece of wood that's not subtractive. Can you imagine that might make a good musical instrument than something that goes thud? Right? Same thing, if we get the water out of the wood and we get the resins crystallized, then we have a chance of making an instrument that's going to sustain. Now, your experience, I've never asked you, does this guitar sustain better or worse than your old guitars?
Oh, way better.
Way better.
Yeah.
So the note will last longer without distortion than any other thing that you have.
Yeah.
Is that important to you?
Oh, of course. It's important to, I think, any player.
Okay, so that would be the point. If we get the water out of the wood, listen to this fretboard. Can you hear that?
Your earpiece, I could hear that. That's so loud.
All right, so somebody said, okay, Paul, I want to see you drop your nuts on the floor, so I'm going to do it. All right, so here we go. This is actually fascinating, so just listen, everybody. This is a plastic nut. It's made out of the same material that you hook your toilet to your septic tank with. Okay, here's another plastic nut. It's a little better. Here is a bone nut. That's a lot better. And this is our nut material. Now listen to the difference. You think this is going to absorb the sound? And to me, all this stuff makes a difference. If that makes a difference, here's a piece of plastic I'll drop on the floor. Here's a piece of aluminum. Which would you rather make the parts on the guitar out of? I mean, I'm showing you this because theoretically, an electric guitar is a guitar with 2 magnetic microphones underneath it. An acoustic guitar is a guitar with a speaker cabinet attached, right? And what I'm suggesting is that these magnetic microphones are listening to the string. No matter what mic you put on Barbra Streisand, she is not going to sound like Paul Rodgers. Will you admit that? Right?
Yeah,
It's not going to happen. I'm sorry, an EQ, I don't care what you do, you're not going to get her to sound the same. Same thing with a guitar. You're going to put those pickups on 5 different guitars, exactly the same pickups. It's going to sound different. You've done it before. You've taken pickups out of a guitar, put them in another guitar, expect it to sound the same, and it does not.
Yeah. But it's back to you alluded to earlier, the cooking analogy.
Okay.
You have to put a lot of focus on the ingredients, and these would be the equivalent of that. If you were to swap out a terrible piece of wood for that thing, you wouldn't have the same guitar.
You wouldn't have the same guitar. Most guitars that are shipped are 11% water. You really want the guitar that you buy to be 11% water? This is only 7. It rings, right? So why don't you take these pieces of wood and slowly start passing them around. Look, if you hold it here, it doesn't ring. You have to hold it at the quarter point. Do you hear the difference? Same thing with this. Dead. Here, quarter.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's the way it works. Who wants to play catch? Come on, somebody have some balls. All right, so now I want to try to prove the theory, okay?
Okay.
This is an unsubtractive instrument. So I want you to turn our microphones off. I want you to turn the PA off. Mark, put your guitar down, please. You can bang on anything you want. So now the mics are off, okay? If we've done our job, this guitar, you've never played this guitar, correct? No. Okay. Have you ever played a PRS acoustic?
Years ago, but I don't have one.
This one is owned by Sweetwater. You can't have this unless somebody at Sweetwater wants to give it to you and take it out of the room. So the reason we turn the mics off is if we've done our job, this speaker cabinet should fill the room, right? Right? I'm trying to shut it up, but it won't shut up. Have you ever had an acoustic do that?
That's awesome.
Not better than that.
Where was this when we were tracking our albums?
We could use this.
So now point the guitar over there so that we can switch. This is projecting, right? Can you hear the difference in volume? Isn't that wild? This single, Leslie. So, can you hear that? I just brings the hair on my arm up. And you know, the problem is on the internet, now we're buying with our eyes. We're buying with the reputation of what the blogs say. And unless you hear that, you don't know. But I just think that that's wonderful. Look, whatever's coming out of the back's not coming out of the front. This guitar is locked up on the back and goose is a goose on the top. This is supposed to be a speaker cabinet. This is the speaker, this is the port, and this is the cabinet. That's the way Antonio Torres, who invented the guitar, basically wanted it to be. Now we think noise needs to come out of the back. But when you do that, it don't Leslie like that. A Leslie is, for those who don't know, is a rotating speaker. That's even going to be on your phone, changing volume. There's so many harmonics. See, here's the downside, Mark. Dead strings, the guitar sounds dead. Live strings, the guitar is absolutely alive. on a really good guitar, like Tommy Manuel, all these guys change strings every single gig. Do you guys do that too?
No, I don't have very acidic sweat. I don't know how many of you guys sweat when you play guitar? You find yourself having to change strings very often? I actually don't, because my sweat is not acidic. If I was to lick my arm after I sweat, which I do quite often, I don't really taste much because it's not acidic.
Locally, I do not lick my arm.
Don't leave me out there.
Why? You got a bigger hand than me. It's gonna be loud over there, not over there. You guys hearing that? That's not a subtractive instrument. That is you're putting a force in and it's transmitting it into sound. A bad guitar, you would beat the crap out of it and nothing comes out of it. Same is true for electric guitars. You want a guitar that rings when you play it so that he's not fighting it. He's putting energy in, it's giving energy back. He doesn't want a guitar where you've had a guitar where you sucks all the energy out of it. You don't want that. You want something that is.
Don't want to fight your guitar.
I see you can turn the mics back on. Thank you very much. Anyway, Mark, yes, I'll make you a guitar. I'll give it to you. It's done. Anybody want to play catch?
I'll take that one.
No. And if you had dropped it, I would have had to pay for it. So I have an amp, not set up your way, but old school. Old school, right? Old school would be just plugged in. Now, here's the real problem. I don't know if this is true for you. You don't have a pedal board right here. You've got it all in a fractal, right?
Normally when we play live, we have all of our patch changes on the Aspects programs in a Pro Tools session, which is really high tech and something that I still don't quite understand. So that means I don't have to use a pedal board.
Okay, but now people have given up on guitars. They're deciding that I need a pedal is the way I'm going to fix it, and they're turning the guitar into a synthesizer controller. But in my opinion, a new pedal isn't the way to start. This is the way, I mean, to me, that's the way to start. Which is how, of all weird things, Smoke on the Water was recorded. He did it with his fingers. Or Van Halen.
Nothing beats it.
It's nothing beats it. You can buy all the pedals you want, and that ain't going to happen. So, to me, I don't want to give up on the electric guitar. I want it to ring. I want it to sustain. I want it to have a beautiful tone. Then you turn your wah-wah pedal on, it's better. Then you turn on your Wampler pedal, then it's better. Then you've got a chorus pedal, then it's better. You don't want to have to try to increase something that sounds weak in the beginning. Wouldn't you rather start with a powerful tone? And so to me, that's kind of what's up. So, as the theory goes, guitars are subtractive. And every single time you get rid of a subtractive element, the guitar gets better and better and better and better and better. So at PRS, we're drying the woods. Anybody who's holding this wood knows that it's very, very dry and resonant. And that's clear, right? Anybody who heard him play the first tune, that guitar is doing exactly what you want as a tool. You listen to what I did with the acoustic, the guitar is ringing like crazy. I'm putting a force in, and then the instrument is taking it and converting it into sound. If I put a force of 7 in, I can't get a force of 7.4 out. I can only get a force of 6.9 or something like that out of the guitar. So to me, I want as well a conversion as I can possibly get. And at PRS, we live by this theory. This is what we do. We're not just trying to sell a brand. We're trying to sell musical instruments that you can make a living on. And here's the interesting part, Mark. The firemen in my town came to me and said, when the house is on fire, we're starting to hear more get the PRS than get the pictures. And that day, I believed we were doing our job. That day, I felt better about pushing on somebody to buy a guitar, because if you're going to scream for the guitar, not the photographs in the house, that means the guitar is an heirloom. A guitar is something they want to pass down in their family. A guitar is something that your guitars will end up with your kids or whatever it is, right? So to me. So that's the theory. Has anybody ever told you guitars are subtractive?
No, that's the first time I've heard. It's a really interesting way.
What do you think? What do you think of it?
I think that's an interesting theory, and it makes sense. I just
Do
never
you
think
buy it?
Yeah, I do. But to say that something sounds subtractive to me makes it.
Well, everybody says the bridge will add to the sound. The
Right,
tuning page will
exactly.
add to the sound. I'm saying it subtracts less. Because you're hitting the string and you want it to not be taken from.
Right, and certain components can take
Absolutely.
away that directness.
That's correct.
Yeah, I never think of it that way, really. Because I think the gear culture, and like I said, gear slut earlier, were these people like myself who are obsessed with gear and specs and all this, and it's about acquisition, it's about acquiring things, it's about when can I get this new toy and this new toy, which goes completely against philosophically what you're kind of saying, is that if the more components and ingredients you add to something, the more likelihood you have to compromise it.
I would agree. So let me give you an example in the recording world. A U47 mic, an old one, okay? It had a diaphragm, it had half a tube, a capacitor, and a output transformer. That was it. That was the entire audio path. Those are 10 grand or more. Now you get one that's got a lot of op amps in it and this, that, and the other. $500.
Right.
I'm sorry. The one that's simpler is worth way more money.
Yeah.
People don't pay money for old Strats like 55 Strats or early Les Pauls or early Martins or any of these things because they're old. They do it because there's something extraordinary about them as a musical instrument. And what I'm suggesting is these are very, very, very simple devices that do a beautiful job. In My Time of Dying was played on a guitar that was made out of fiberboard that was hollow, that had two lipstick containers with magnets and things slid in it. That was an old Dan Electro. It had an aluminum nut, which you heard the sound of aluminum. And to me, he knew what he was doing because he plugged that guitar in and it did something the other instruments didn't do. And I got to see him play that tune live on the Outrider tour. I was stunned what a good guitar player this guy was. Oh, Jimmy Page can play guitar, make no mistake. Hendrix can play guitar, make no mistake. There's a lot of, Jeff Beck's a wonderful guitar player. There's a lot of, and this guy can play guitar, make no mistake. All right, so that said, I want to change it. I want to hear you play some more. Will you do it again now? Can we let him play another tune? Will we do it? All right. So we play another tune and then we'll open this up for questions because they have questions that if we answer them, will expose things that we would have never thought about talking about.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good.
Mark, here we go.
All right. So, here's another Periphery tune. This one is called Scarlet. I don't know if you guys know that one. It's off of the This is a song that was inspired by a tuning, much like the previous one. This is a tuning that we call it Scarlet tuning, which is kind of silly. But now it's called Open C add 9. So basically it's an open C chord with a 9th on top. So what you have is a very happy, flowery, positive sounding tuning. Actually, I found out that a lot of sort of folk singer-songwriter artists use this tuning because it's so conducive to just big. And the goal behind the song was to write a metal song in that tuning, to take the most happy, positive, flowery tuning and write something angry. So here's an angry song. Well, it's not so angry, but
You guys play Anger with Joy, which is an interesting combination.
yeah. But that's the best way to do it. No, it really is, because you see these metal guys who are playing this angry, awful, ugly music, and they take it so seriously. how do you have fun doing that? You know, it's like, it's you gotta have some confluence of emotions there. All right, so here's Scarlet. Bear with me, because I haven't played this song in about 3 months.
show you something about Sweetwater. You see that clock? 21:21, that's how much time we have. They actually time it to the second.
Wow.
And, well,
So strict.
It's so strict. I had to take a shot, come on. So we're going to do something very unusual. I usually don't do this, but I'm going to open up the floor to questions because this is new territory in our industry. His band is doing extraordinarily well. They actually started in a bedroom in Bethesda, Maryland, and were able to get out and then you guys are touring, you have your own everything, whether it be music or videos, or I mean, we put a video of yours up and like an hour later 30,000 people watched it. It's really extraordinary what they're doing. So you have a question for me or a question for Mark yet?
I have a question about finishes on the guitar. I noticed that his is more of a flat, tight satin finish.
Yeah.
I love the way it wears in, where he touches it, where the knobs are, when he works the knob, it's really glossy.
Yeah.
My question is about subtractiveness. What do you use for finish? What do you look for in finish
Well,
to help reduce that?
The number one thing with finish is how thick it is. If it's really thick and soft, that isn't going to work. But something that's the thickness of a piece of paper and soft isn't going to affect it as much. The thickness is first. Second, he requested the satin. And when he requested, we did it in satin nitro on the top, right? And what happens is that it naturally isn't glossy, but as he rubs it, it's like buffing it out, right? That's, yeah, well, we didn't put war wounds in babies. That's him, right? So that was his request. We had zero problem with it. And, you know, people don't really want guitars that are so perfect that they don't want to take them out, which makes me crazy. I'd rather put a sticker on it, put some dents in it, and go use the thing. I don't care how much it costs. It's still a deal. Even a private stock that's $7,500 here from Sweetwater is 1/10 the cost of a violin. So, I mean, they're going to take the violin out and play it, but the guitar, no. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. But to me, did you know that when you ordered it satin that it was going to start glossing up where you touched it?
Yeah, but then like kind of like you said, it adds its own touch. You won't find a guitar in a store that looks quite like this, you know, that they sort of are kind of malleable in that way. Whatever you do to the guitar and however much you play it reflects the way it looks, which I think is pretty cool.
Right. Does somebody have a question in the very, very back?
Yeah, Mark's guitar is at 25.5-inch scale.
25 and a half, yep.
Given that they all sold out, are you thinking maybe you have some more models with 25.5-inch scale in the future?
There's got to be someone I can
No,
ask
we're
about
really,
that.
let's go here. He's saying some more models of 25.5-inch scale. He's insinuating that we would release a 25.5-inch scale guitar without your name on it
Oh,
again.
that's your call, man.
Wouldn't you rather see more Mark Holcomb signature models right now?
I would, absolutely.
Okay, look. When I started, people played Les Pauls and they played Strats. Strats were 25.5-inch scale, and a Les Paul was 24 9/16. Measure it, it's advertised wrong. It's 1/16 over 25.5, okay? Which I find very interesting. I said it. All right. So, and I put it in the middle so that if somebody was playing a Strat and a Les Paul on different songs, that they would feel comfortable. And I never ever thought it would catch on really like it did until I saw other companies building 25-inch scale fret scale machines, which is not so easy to do. He wanted the longer scale because he's tuning way down. You could have gone to 26. You
Yeah.
could have gone even, but he had experience with 25.5 and he went, it'll work just like that. It's just in the right spot. But it's how loose it is. It's how long the string is. So sure, we can do that. We'll make you anything you want in private stock right now. If you've got a credit card, I'll take it and we'll make it, okay? That rhymed. That's actually, I'll take it and we'll make it. I like that. All right, so that might stick. Yeah, the answer is yes. We'll be making different scale length guitars. We make 24.5-inch scale, 25, 25.25. We make a lot of different scale lengths now. So, and we make 25.5, which is this. So the answer is probably yes. If I tell you any more, I haven't told my reps yet, and they'll kill me. All right?
What's the radius on the fretboard?
20-inch radius.
All right, so what that means is the circle that you take the section out of this 20-inch radius, which is 40 inches in diameter. It's pretty flat. Most of our guitars are 10-inch radius, but he was very used to playing on something that was flatter. And so for him, if he didn't start to learn how to drive the car that way, he didn't want to do it that way, right? So it's fine. It's about it's twice as flat as a normal PRS fretboard. Somebody in the back here. Yeah, you.
All right, thanks.
One waving your hand.
All right.
Very good. You have 16 minutes and 2 seconds.
Mark mentioned this, and Carlos mentions it in his recent book, The Story of His Life, when he talks about PRS, and he mentions the stability, particularly on the road. What do you attribute the stability that you're famous for?
All right, so the stability comes from several issues. Tuning pegs that are geared well and the gears mesh together well first. Second, the nut slots are not so tight that you can't pull the string through and it gets stuck. Next thing is the neckwood has to be strong. If the neckwood's really loose, it's not going to be stable. This guitar that you have has got a really strong neck on it. And Carlos was using pretty big necks, and so for him, he wasn't experiencing different humidity changes affecting how the neck was bowed. All right. He also wanted the guitar to stay in tune, so we put the tremolo on a knife edge. There's all kinds of stuff that we've done to his guitar so that it's stable, that it returns to the same spot when he uses the arm or bends the string. If the guitar is changing shape all the time because it's drying, it's not going to be stable. The same thing with this wood on pass around. It all comes from the same theory, right? And that would be subtractive if it wasn't stable. It would not be good. Something was moving. It's not okay. And this guitar has been reliable no matter what the humidity level, no matter what.
Yeah, just to go off of what you're saying, PRS does have a reputation of that kind of stuff. It has a reputation for perfection, I think, and with that comes the, I always heard, oh, they're the most stable guitars, and this was when I was a teenager before I was fortunate enough to own one. I remember hearing these things about how they would just stay stable and just perfect throughout different climates, and actually, it's funny you mentioned this guitar because it was 2 flights. It was DC to Detroit and then Detroit to Tokyo.
Right.
And it stayed in tune. When we got to our venue, a day and a half later, I picked it up out of the case, and it probably, the case probably dinged it up once or twice, but I plugged it in and it was perfectly in tune. I'd never had that happen. I've had it come close, but never perfectly in tune, and I thought that was crazy, and it had been beaten up at that point. So yeah, it's not just a reputation, it's very much the truth.
So when I started, I didn't think about the guitars being stable, but I knew the artists weren't going to use the guitar unless it was stable, right? And what really surprised me is we had a room full of Nashville studio guitar players, about 30 of them, and they said, Paul, if we don't use your guitars on the tracks, they erase our tracks. And I said, what in God's name are you talking about? They're tuning every syllable of the vocals now, and if the guitar is not in perfect tune with the track, they erase us. And if they erase us, we're not invited back. So when you saw the Country Music Awards the other night, almost every single band was playing PRS. We have actually impregnated that entire thing because not only is it stable in terms of its tuning like he's talking about, but we've moved the nut around and we've got the intonation set up and the frets are in the right place that they're playing in tune with tuned vocals. So that's a stability all on its own. All right, great. So yeah, you right here.
How do you find stability being affected by thickness and contour of the neck?
Well, if the neck was that thick, do you think it's, just exaggerate it. If it's that thick, is it going to be stable? The thing's going to move around like a rubber band.
Mark, do you have a thinner neck?
I have what's called the pattern thin neck shape, which is a neck shape that they offer currently, but I have seen that case very often of a neck being too thin. I have a friend.
Not on a PRS.
What's that? Not on a PRS, not on a PRS, but I've seen
the shit out of
he just went to cock his hand to smack me. I have a very good friend whose guitar company will be unnamed on this stage, who ordered a custom guitar, and the neck was so thin that he tried to play one show with it.
It's moving all over the place.
Yes. Couldn't even stay through one song. You had these lower strings dropping out and stuff.
A piece of physics. The strength of the neck goes up by the square of its thickness and by the cube of its length. So literally, if you hold a pencil in the middle and somebody tries to wiggle it and you hold at the end, it's not twice as strong, it's like 10 times as strong. Same thing with this. As we make it thicker, it's x to the square, and the length is x to the cube. So making it a little bit thicker makes a big difference. Making the heel move out just a little bit makes a huge difference.
And you're offering different neck thicknesses.
Yeah, we have a pattern neck, a pattern regular, and a pattern thin. There are examples in the store here. You can try them. We have extraordinary way of carving the necks. We don't carve them rough and then sand them into place. We spend a lot of time with the CNC going back and forth until that neck is exactly the right shape. So when the guy sands it, he doesn't have to take very much off. The Holcomb models that you played, all the necks have been the same shape, right?
Yeah, same exact shape.
Right. Does that answer your question? All right, somebody right here in the front.
When you select your.
You have 10 minutes and 33, 32, 31.
Get the hardwood street bodies and the neck.
Yeah.
For kiln dried or air dried.
All right. So kiln drying is where you stick it in an oven and they actually steam it so it doesn't crack, and then they heat it up and try to bring it down. Kiln drying used to be 7% water. Now it's 10%, 11%. In my experience, that's not good enough. The frets will stick out of the side of the neck after your first winter. Has anybody in this room had a problem with a guitar where the frets stuck out the side of the neck after the winter? That's because the wood shrank and the frets didn't. It's not okay. So kiln drying isn't good enough, and we have ovens all over our factory drying the wood. One of the ways that we got the S2 necks to be so stable is we're doing it even more. So we bring it down to about 6% water, and then if you have a kitchen table in your house that's been there 20 years, in the spring or the fall, it's about 7% water. It's dried and dried and dried and dried and dried, and it'll pick up some water from the air. That's 7%. In my experience, that's the way it should be. Air drying is to get it to not crack, and kiln drying is to get the water out, and I don't think that the way the industry is right now is the way it should be. I think everything should be 7%. I have taken necks and taken finish off other brands and literally had them in my office, and they came apart. So what they have done is sealed the water in the wood like a swimming pool. And if you take the finish off, if you look at Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar, a lot of these old guitar players, the finish on the neck has been gone for a long time. Those things have been through a lot of drying periods of summer and winters, and they've dried out really well. It makes a difference. No, we heat it up to 175 degrees for enough time to get all the water out of the wood and get the resins crystallized. We are baking it. We're not baking it like a piece of chicken. This new torrefied wood thing, they actually bake it to the point where the wood starts to get burnt. We don't do that. But we've been baking the wood since day one. We bring the fretboards down to 2% and let it come back up, because we don't want if the fret stuck out the side of the neck on this, he's fine. So the answer is we dry the piss out. Did that answer your question? All right, somebody over here. Does somebody have a question?
Can I request we call on this gentleman in the blue shirt right here?
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine. Hey.
Is this? Oh, now hang on a minute. This is a planted question.
Let's see what his question is.
Go on.
I think this is the first PRS model that has that bridge. It looks similar to Trent Bridge.
It's essentially our version of a hardtail.
So this is the first one that has string through.
Mm-hmm.
Would you explain the reason, Mark, behind doing that instead of this wraparound that PRS has done?
I like the resonance of a string through body. I like the way it sounds, and aesthetically it's cool. And I'm just not a trem guy. I like to beat the hell out of my guitars with my right hand. I pick extremely hard, and whenever I had a trem, I used to have a Floyd on my guitar years ago, and I couldn't stand it. It just went out of tune, and it was a hassle to maintain. So I'm all about the hardtails.
So the other thing it does is our stop tailpiece is thicker, and it would raise the strings up off the body more. So we call this down on the deck. So getting the string very, very close to the body, so the pickups have to be way down in the rings, and the rings have to be thin. And he's used to playing that way as well. So he gets a stop tailpiece feel with a lower neck angle. There's a new artist that we've been working with that is very, very reliant on how close the strings are to the body for a lot of the things he's doing, and we call this down on the decks. We want the strings down as close to the body as possible, and that also does that as well.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Not a planning question.
Not
You won that one. Somebody over here, see the guy, can you pick the guy in the black hat?
Comment, Mr. Smith, I bought one of your guitars about a year ago.
Is it okay?
And it's fantastic.
All right, good. I feel better.
I'm a traditional player. I got Les Pauls, I got Straps, I got Gretsch's, you name them, I've got them. But that's the first PRS I've ever bought, and it's the best playing guitar I've ever played.
Thank you very much. Yeah, right here.
With your subtractive theory, how would you apply that to the different lines you have, SE, S2? Is one line more subtractive than the other? How would you address that?
All right, the theory we apply across the board, all right? you have to trust the guitar makers in the other factories. I mean, this thing about it being subtracted is not new. It's been going, the old master, believe me, Stradivari understood this concept, that when they played pianissimo really quiet, he wanted it really loud in the back. I mean, if you listen to the 60 Minutes interview with Isaac Perlman, he talks about that. The instrument makers have known this for a very, very long time. So when we buy our SE acoustics, when I get prototypes in and the wood is dried beautifully, I don't complain. I let it go. So there are places where you try to control and there are places where you let go. We have several silos of business, so let me go through those with you real quick. We have electric guitars, and that goes from private stock to artist pack to core to S2 to SEs, and all of those price points. There are things that we do on private stocks to make them less attractive that we don't do to SEs, but I gotta tell you, in my opinion, the SEs for the money are the best guitar you can buy for the money. And Sweetwater sells an extraordinary amount of S2s and SE guitars. Lots and lots and lots. And our business here at Sweetwater has gone up, what, 25% in the last year or something like that? Is there somebody here from Sweetwater? Yes, 25%, something like that. So believe me, if the sales engineers in this place did not think that was a good deal for their customer, they wouldn't even think about mentioning it to them. So we're not trying to do anything but do the very, very best thing that we can do for that price point. I cannot afford a hand-cut bone nut on an SE and get that price point, or an S2, but we can put that on a private stock. But the same exact material we put on private stocks, we are now sticking on S2s. So it depends on things. One of the first things you're going to say to somebody when you're talking to them is, I've got about $600 to spend, I want a PRS, what do you have? And we have done everything we can possibly do to incorporate all that stuff into that guitar that costs you $600 or $6 grand or whatever it is, right? The answer is, if we can do it all, we do it all. If we can do 90% of it, we do 90 or 80, but it's not zero, I guarantee you that. Does that answer your question? All right. So, look, Mark, thank you for coming. It's really, really nice that you came. And some of your band's doing something new, and you broke some codes in terms of record company and record deals and touring and all these things. They weren't a victim to the record companies. You just said, this is the way it's being done. It's being done on YouTube. It's being done on iTunes. It's being done this way. We'll have our own tours. We'll have our own customers. We'll have our own fans. And they broke the code in our industry that you could make a living for a big crew of people again. And you did a great job. Everybody give Mark a big hand. We're good. 2 minutes, 25 seconds. I ended early.
Amazing.
Now let me tell you something. I'm going to get a report on how I did. I'm going to get graded. You guys are going to grade me. You're going to do the whole thing, and I'll live with it.
And it'll be spectacular.
That's great.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Reed Smith, Mark Holcomb.